Father taught me many things here. He taught me, keep your friends close, but your enemies close.
Hey, folks. Thank you for stopping by Kaiser's Castle. Of course, the intro music today was by Axion Ghost, Musa's Pizza. And that is a epic song. Of course, you guys, some of you like it, some of you probably don't. But the man who makes it is an epic dude, so I love to pimp his stuff. Now, the past couple days ago, Baz and I decided we were going to do a shout out to somebody who had some serious questions. And today, what we're going to do, we've already covered basic kit, what to equip yourself clothing wise and different scenarios and whatnot. Today, we're going to go into a little bit of survival. We're going to go into, what every soldier usually keeps on hand for survival situations, including knives, spades, shovels, folding shovels in particular. Machetes if needed, different items that you may need, and we'll go in depth onto it. And I'll even tell you, I haven't bought a knife in years, and I bought one, and I'm happy with it, except it had a crap scabbard, but I found you can buy them on the internet. With that being said, thank you for sitting on my big orange couch. Grab your coffee, tea, soda, or adult libation. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. How you doing today there, Baz?
Yeah, not so bad, brother. Yourself?
Oh, I can't complain. If I did, people just point and laugh.
Like they always do, brother.
Yeah, if I was any better, man, they'd have to clone me because one person couldn't hold it all. Anywho, so we'll get right into this bad boy. Survival kits. I want the English perspective, and then I'll throw in the American perspective, and then we can come together and have a conversation just on that. Basic from micro to macro kits without going into details that we've already covered like clothing, but we do need to bring up bashes or tarps, something to, and substitutes for there. But I want you to go first, brother. Run with it.
Yeah, I think when it comes to your personal survival kit, first thing you need to do is decide where you're going to carry it. Now, there's no point having a survival kit that's going to be hard to reach or difficult to find, too bulky, So it's very much an individual sort of choice and the way that they want to carry it and what they want in it. I think from both sides of the pond, it would look quite similar, if you know what I mean. And again, a lot of it goes through experiences as well, through experiences of it, like say issues you've had in the past, or there's been times maybe in the past you've been in a certain situation, you've thought, "Fuck, I wish you had this," or "I wish you had that," or "That would be really useful in this situation." And times like that have sort of made me tweak my sort of survival kits and things like that over the years, and to take bits out, add bits. There might be something out on the market now that is a lot smaller and a lot more effective and hard-wearing than something that we put in 10, 15 years ago,
Right.
because times change. Or you might find that you've got something in your survival kit that, it's not the case of will I ever use that. It's of, look, my survival kit needs to be this big, and I need to sacrifice something in it to make space for this because it's more important, or this job can do the job of that bit and that bit. So there's no point in having both, if you know what I mean.
Right.
Because again, like we said, Johan's questions were if you need to bug out somewhere and things like that. Remember, you're carrying this kit. You might not have a vehicle, or vehicles might be if there's an EMP blast for some reason or something like that, or there's gas shortages, or just all the arterial routes to and from your bug out locations or whatever are all blocked for whatever reason.
Somehow it's immobilized, right? You're on foot.
Yeah, you're on foot, so you're going to be carrying all this stuff. So an element of common sense needs to sort of prevail. So personally, in my survival kit, I like to keep mine quite small, something that can fit into a leg pocket or a jacket pocket, something that's not too heavy, something that you can forget about that's there, but it's robust, and when you need, it's got the stuff in that you need. I mean, just for example, mine's got a condom in there because a condom latex, it can carry huge amounts of water.
Non-lubricated. Let's make sure to stipulate that for the ignorant.
Yeah, not strawberry flavored. It doesn't matter whether it's ribbed or what, but
or a reservoir tube.
yeah. A condom's always good because again, it's got multiple uses.
Right.
I have one of those. I think we call them a commando saw, where it's a flexible saw. I've got one of those. That's got a multitude of uses that I don't want to go into outside of cutting wood. Small razor blade, a lighter, some the little tea light candles. I'll always carry a couple of those because there's been a time in my past where I really needed those, and I was lucky enough that somebody had some. A bit of fishing line. Again, it's just the old personal touch to things. I always carry a bit of a Brillo pad and a battery. Do you know what I mean by a Brillo pad? It's like a wire wool. Yeah, and a battery because that's a real good fire lighter. Yep. Also, I carry it in a Golden Virginia tobacco tin. And then with the wire wool, what I can do is use it to shine up the tobacco tin so it can be used for signaling and things like that. Yep. Flashing aircraft or getting people's attention, signaling over distance by the reflection of light. Yeah, so there's all sorts in there. I mean, I can't remember actually what I've got in there because it's quite tightly packed. But what also you need to make sure is that one, it's robust, and two, it's pretty much watertight, if you know what I mean.
Oh,
What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, no, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Tins are great. If once you've got your tin, make sure to tape the opening if it's just like a snap closure. If it's not one of those purpose-built survival tins, which you can find, and I'm going to pimp this site numerous times during this conversation. It's not just for that. You can find other gear there, too. It's based out of America, run by John McCon. It's called Survival Resources. You can find it online. I believe it's survivalresources.com. And what this cat does is go out when the military's having survival kit or whatever being built. The manufacturers, because it's expendable kit, if you're not in the military, Baz and I both know expendable means it's going to be used often. Like, let's say, waterproof matches, stuff like that. They'll make 1 million of them because that's what the contract calls for, but they'll make 2 more million because they know it's expendable. Well, if they're not selling it quick enough, this guy goes in and buys it for 50 cents on a dollar, 75 cents on a dollar, whatever it is. He gets it as cheap as he can, and find a lot of good quality kit at that page. And stuff we're going to touch on that you'll find it for a fraction of the cost you'll find it at Army Navy Surplus or a online, but do price shop. I mean, you'll find some stuff on eBay every once in a while. But yeah, I agree with you on your kit. I carry a sewing kit also to augment it, but that doesn't have to be waterproof. Just because you need to tend to any rips, tears. You have to remember with Gore-Tex, you need the slap-on pasties that are made of Gore-Tex for any holes that you may get. Like Baz said, hard use kit. I'm not averse as long as it's a waterproof container and you're not going to blow through it with some sharp object. As long as you pack it correctly. If you're worried about weight or size, it's a lot easier. Like the parachute survival kit that comes in all parachutist kit. That's basically cardboard because it's got a folding knife, a little pen knife, a whittling knife, in every one of them. They're made by a couple different companies. And then you'll find a small button compass. You can't have enough directional finding devices. Keep them as small as you can. You can even find some that are as small as your tip of your pinky finger for certain applications. Then I would say I know that Hest makes a really good tool. It's a Mr. DP style. It's for the knife, the Hest F info, which is the hazardous environmental survival tool. It's their folding knife version. That's why it's a Hest F. And that way you can make adjustments to your tension on that knife. But that actual tool is quite useful too. It's got a couple different uses. I got some from Robert Young Pelton a long time ago. Still have them. I believe in always having a ferrule rod. At least have a sharpener, a knife sharpener. That should be on your knife. And a magnesium rod. Now, I believe Survival Resources also has pre-shredded magnesium. So you can augment that instead of having it in a hard block. There's just a myriad of options that you can throw in. And like Baz said, keep it as light as possible. Honestly, I don't have a problem with metal tins or anything else because out of that you can make char cloth. You can make, you know what I'm talking about when I mean char cloth. You dig a hole, you put the coals in it, and you can even do it with 550 cord. Anything that has cotton in it, throw it in there, and it's a fire starter. You can also carry embers in it. If you're going from place to point, and you want to make sure you have something to start the next fire, throw some coals in that bad boy, sling it somehow so you don't burn yourself with it, and something leather preferably, like a leather bag or something, a possibles bag, and you can carry fire with you. That's just an old Indian trick, my brother. What do you think?
Yeah. I'm trying to think. There was like a fungus as well. It was an ear fungus or something like that. That they used to basically used to put in the coals, and it wouldn't burn, but it'd create an ember, like a charcoal ember,
right? And
it'd last for days. This like really slow smouldering, and they used to carry that around in a bag as well to start fires. Yep. Yeah. So your survival tin, again, it's a very sort of a personal. No two survival tins will probably look the same.
Right.
Obviously, there's always going to be the similarities between both. The odd bits of kit in there. Like you said there, directional finding equipment. Learn how to use what you've got as well. It's no point having, I've got like you said there, having as much as possible, because if one goes down, then you've got another. Two is one is none, and all that stuff.
That's right.
Like with your sewing kit, learn how to strop a needle, put it onto a leaf, and float it. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And obviously, because of the magnetics, it will point north south.
Yep.
Learn how to use your equipment as well. That's very important, because if you learn how to use your equipment, you need to take the necessity to take more of it is lessened. If you know what I mean.
Right. You can keep
Rather
it
than
more
having,
primitive.
yeah. Because at the end of the day, a GPS can run out of batteries. Satellites can be knocked out by EMP blasts.
Yep.
Yada yada yada. There's always going to be a magnetic field around the Earth unless something happens. And to be honest, if that does happen, then the survival kit's not going to do much good. If the solar flare sort of hits the Earth and rips the ozone layer away, then we're all doomed anyway. So you can always rely on nature,
Right.
to do some of the jobs for you, and it's learning that as well, because that's part of your survival kit is knowledge. Just having
Yep.
all these fancy fucking bits of kit that you can carry on you off different websites and off eBay and surplus
Right.
stores. If you don't know how to use it and you don't know how to survive, then you're spending money on a lot of shiny toys, if you know what I mean.
Well, it's like
So
it's kind of like what Dr. Bruce Clayton wrote in his book, Surviving Doomsday, I think it was called. And he said, people that buy a lot of guns, never practice with them, have a bunch of ammunition, it's just going to be a loud suicide. And it's basically the same thing with survival kit. You're just going to have a bunch of kit. You've done fuck all with it. You've never used it. You didn't even take your compass when you know which way, when you're at your house, which way's north, south, east, and west. You never even took your compass out of the pouch to look and see which way it's pointed. Is it pointing north, or is it a button compass that's all fucked up? Even a lensatic compass. I had one that was buttered up like a motherfucker. And it was because that little iridium piece that illuminates it had popped out. And so there were chunks of it, and it would hold the north-south pin in certain positions sometimes, and you really had to watch. I could get it to work, but I had to watch and make sure that I was tapping it to get all those little bric-a-brac, that flotsam and jetsam in the lensatic compasses fluid. This is back when I was a young troop, and they gave me a compass, and, I didn't know really what I was doing, except for I knew that was fucking up my north-south. And I'd tap it, and all of a sudden I'd have a free needle then. And these are things that you're exactly right, Baz, when you bring it up. You've got to test it. You've got to get out there. And there's not a survival instructor I know, and this is what I tell everybody, that won't tell you, first test it out in your backyard. When I taught my son how to do winter survival, it was in the backyard. Because guess what? If something goes terribly wrong, come inside.
You're in a safe location.
Yeah. It was a below zero camp out, and if he couldn't have hacked it or I couldn't have hacked it, something would have happened. Heart attack, split your leg open, cutting the wood. That was when he was going, doing his Eagle Scout stuff. If something would have happened, walk right in the house, call the ambulance, but you start here's the one thing that's a truism, and you know this. You had a guy, I think, in Scotland do this, and he was a well-known survival guy. This is a few years back, if memory serves. But he went out in the woods. He was going to go trek for the whole winter or something. And within a few weeks, they found his body. And I guess you guys have little shanties, shacks, for the people who work on your railroads.
Yeah.
And they found his dead corpse in there. And he'd even tried to make a fire inside that because the winter was so bad. And I think it was what they called the Scottish Highlands. I read the report. It was a long time. It was a few years back. And I was just amazed. I mean, experts die all the time. That's why I never used the word expert. We're all practicing survival. So be mindful of that. For if you ever need it, you at least have the skills to use it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, again, like you just said there, and like I said earlier on, the knowledge the kit you carry is only sort of like 20% of your actual survival kit. Everything else is knowledge. Is knowing how to start a fire. You know what I mean, with basic materials, knowing how to find the direction if you've got no compass, if you don't have water to hand, is knowing what
Right.
side of the tree moss grows on, what time of the year, you know what I mean, the sun will sit the highest in the sky, and you know how to tell the time using the sun and the shadows and all that stuff, even down to what you can eat, what you can't eat, what you can use for antiseptics, all things like that. And that doesn't come overnight, that comes with time. And it's you can't learn this with a scattergun approach, if you know what I mean. You need to sort of concentrate one area of survival and get that down to a level where you're comfortable of doing it. Where you can do it when your hands are cold, you can do it at night when it's dark, you know,
Right.
when the materials that you've got aren't the ideal materials, you know, that's what you need to do. Is worst case scenario, because at the end of the day, it's all survival is. It's fucking worst case scenario, you know. Things have gone to shit. You can't go down to the store to buy it, or you can't ring an ambulance, a fire brigade, the police. You know, this is what it is. You're in an area or in a situation where it's out of the norm, and then you reverting back to skills that people were using thousands of years ago, you know, and that we've just forgotten over time. And it's only through practicing these and getting them to the level where you're comfortable at doing them. Like you said there, it's always good to start with what I call a sterile or a secure environment in your backyard, or if you've got like a wooded area near your home, do it there, which is within shouting distance or something like that.
Right.
And do it. Start off as like the basic first of all. Start in a fire with two bits of wood, you know. And once you've done that, try wet wood. Then try it at night. Then try it when it's cold. You know, and build up that skill set. Don't just try and go in. Right, I'm going to try and do it at night with wet wood, and I'll dip my hands in the snow for 15 minutes. You know, because you're going to fail, and then
Your
failure.
confidence goes.
Yeah, if your confidence goes, then you think, I can't do this, I can't do this.
Right.
And therefore, you're going to start relying on bits of equipment then. And like I said, those bits of equipment might be faulty, that you might break them, you might lose them. You know, they might be old and just not function properly. So you need to get the
Right.
basics down first. So that knowledge is the most important kit you're going to have. And that comes in all guys. It's using all your senses, using memory, using experience, you know. And don't be afraid to look on YouTube, you know,
Right.
and look up some of these survival videos. Like you said there, mate. You said be wary of survival experts. Take what they do and just go, okay, that's realistic. That's realistic. There's a lot of people out there like Bear Grylls and people like that do sort of like things that in reality you wouldn't be doing. Like
Right.
no one's going to jump off a waterfall into the water, you know, because
Right.
chances are 9 times out of 10 it's going to leave you with a broken spine, dying on some rocks. You know, look at
Right.
people like there's a good one over here, a bloke called Ray Mears. And he's actually used by UK Special Forces, and he's been all over the world doing. I'll always trust a fat survivalist, if you
Yeah.
know what I mean.
It's
A
true.
guy that can, a guy that can go out and he can live wherever he is in whatever environment comfortably.
Yeah. And not lose weight.
Ray Mears, even though he's a survivalist,
Right.
he can go places, not just survive. He can live.
Hmm.
You know, even for the basics like making a fire, yada yada yada, up to making like a native Indian canoe, you know, or
Right.
kayak or whatever. It all up to skills like that. Now, I'm not saying that you've got to learn how to make a fucking kayak out of wood and an axe, because again, that's advanced type shit. But
Right.
knowing just like you can be confident if it goes wrong, you can survive and keep those around you in relative comfort, warm, somewhere to sleep, somewhere to eat, and something to drink. You know, that is surviving at its most basic instincts. You know,
Oh, you're
so
very
that's what you need
correct.
to work on.
You're very correct. And I'll give two shout outs to two dudes that do it. One's in England. I don't know his name. He's a youngish kid, probably early 30s, late 20s. The millennials will love him. I can't remember his name, but like he has an epic video. You know, I was talking about wolves. I always have a wool blanket. No matter where I go, I bring one. And it's because of that reason. And on um, um, sur- uh, um, survival resources, you can find these little bronze pins. He uses rocks and whatnot, but you can turn a blanket into a cape, into a hooded jacket, if you need to. And, you know, if you're going to carry a basha, which we're about to jump into, might as well wrap a piece of a woolen blanket in there. And that way you at least have that for shelter, for something to sleep with. If you're trying to go light, and a lot of people love to do this. Anyways, that cat, instead of having to use those rocks and 550 cord to secure everything and sticks, you just have that pin and it does the entire thing for you, and it's a sturdy pin. It's like a big diaper pin, honestly. And then the other thing, there's a guy in America. His name is the Iowa Woodsman. Check him out, folks. I think he's a firefighter by trade or a volunteer firefighter. He's got some military experience, but I mean, he took out an US knife. US knife, for those of you not in the military, they make this silver knife. It's got in the U.S. military, Baz, to be clear. It's a silver knife. It's made usually by Camillus, but there's been a couple other manufacturers throughout time. I've got like 5 of them because they issue them everywhere you go. And anyways, he takes that out. He processes his wood, and he's done it in the wet. There's those that can do and those that teach. It's very seldom that you'll see it overlap. And he's gone out on sunny days, rainy days, drenching wet days, and he films it all by himself. He goes out in the woods, he'll bring his dog, and he'll be out for a day or two, whatever. But he processes wood to start a fire in the rain, and he shows you everything about how to cover. If you're getting a piece of wood and you're trying to keep everything mellow, well, of course, bark's a good fire starter, but you keep the one side dry because there'll always be a dry side if you're peeling bark and you're processing the wood. Everything under that bark will be dry too if it's all rotten, laying on the floor scrub. And it's super easy to keep those pieces. You just make a mat with the dry side up and a mat with the dry side down to go over top. And you process the wood, you keep it dry in there, and it really sparks up nicely. And but there's a lot of little tips and tricks that he throws in with all that stuff. And he had me thinking in different directions, and that's another thing. Never stop learning. If me and Baz went out, if there was something I knew and he didn't know, I'd show him, and I'm sure he'd be thirsty for it. And if he had something that he was doing that I didn't know, I'd be thirsty as a motherfucker. I'd be like, yeah, show me that, man. I need to see that again. Yeah. And like you said, YouTube, as long as you take what they're doing and it looks like reality, you're not jumping off a waterfall or walking through, what was that called? What Bear Grylls do, walk through a volcanic area, and it was a fraud thing, but it looked all smoky. And he's like, I'm going to go over this crevasse of lava. Yeah, you're not taking stupid chances and risk, because if you fuck up out there, it's your bacon, mate.
Yeah. And possibly those that rely on you to keep them safe as well. If you're going out with your family, if you're going out with your wife and your kids, they're going to have, obviously, if you're responsible enough, you're going to teach them some basic survival drills, And let's be honest, some of our partners and wives and girlfriends don't want to learn that because they just think you're paranoid as fuck, And right. It's until it happens, And then if you've got kids, if you start doing stupid things, taking risks, then you're not just ending your life, you're potentially ending their lives or making their lives 1,000 times harder because of a poor decision. Always step back and make, I always look at worst case scenario. What could happen if I did this? What could happen if I did this? If you do that, and that doesn't happen, anything else is a bonus. Make good decisions when you're out there. Like I said, when you took your young'un out for his first winter survival, you made a good decision. You didn't go, up into the mountains. It's like when I take my son out, if it's going to be okay, it's getting close to winter. I'm not going to go up to the Lake District or the Scottish Highlands to teach a 10-year-old winter survival. You know what I mean? Because that's just stupid. I'm going to be doing it in the back garden like you
Right.
did, or somewhere very close to home, you know. So, and that goes with anything. That goes with anything, any skill. You're going to practice it first in a secure and safe environment, and then build on that. And that comes down to obviously our next point, which is bashers and tarps and things like that. Now, there's the purists out there, and I'm one of them, that will always sleep under a basher or a tarp. Yeah.
Yep.
If I don't have that, I have the ability and the knowledge to make an A-frame and a lean-to, a bivouac, you know.
Right.
But then there's those out there that will always say, no, I want a tent, because a tent can give you all-round 360 sort of protection from the elements, yada, yada, yada. But tents are bigger. Tents rip. Tents are harder to put up.
And they
especially
weigh
harder,
more.
and they weigh more at night. There's a lot more moving parts. Fucking pros and cons. I'll
Right.
never critique someone for having a tent, because that's their personal choice. That's their you know what I mean? That's what they prefer. Me, I'm a solid tarp guy, or what we call ponchos, bashers. You know, I'll always carry one or
Right.
two of those. You know, one because it's got a multitude of uses. A basher. You know, I mean, you go onto YouTube and you type in Private Chris Gray, one of the guys that unfortunately lost his life in Afghanistan. You can see his platoon, his team, carrying him out in basically a make-do stretcher, and they've
Right.
used a poncho or basher to carry him out.
Right.
You know, it's got a multitude of uses. It can be used to carry things, waterproof things, to sleep under it, protection from the elements. So a good basher. And again, eBay, don't be afraid to hit up eBay. You can pick up British Army bashers on eBay for probably about $10, $15.
Oh,
And
yeah.
they are extremely hard wearing. I've got one that I've had for the past 15, 20 years, you know.
Well,
And all it needs is some bungees or some paracord, 510 paracord, you know, to attach it to a tree and things like that. But again, practice putting it up, because it's an art. Believe it or not, it is an art. I've seen people going, no, I'm going to skip that because it's quite easily. It's just basically putting up a square piece of material between a few trees.
right.
Site location, you know, and that's something else we can come on to is location of where
Yeah.
you're going to actually be staying. But I'll let you speak, mate, because I know you had something to say then.
Oh, yeah. No, I was going to say, I was just edifying you on what you're saying, because you're absolutely right. You know, a ridgeline pole, you can find all that out in the wilderness. You're going to find down trees. You're going to find down limbs. Everything's out there for you. If you're in the woods, you are in a wealth of things that you can use. You don't need to bring tent poles.
Yeah, an abundance of materials.
Yeah, and I've used my basha. Look, I also have. I think the military in your country have them too now. I don't think they were big at the time. But I have my whoopee from the Gulf War now. That's from 90 and 91. It's still 6-color desert camo. And in the military in the U.S., we say the whoopee is love. It's a poncho liner. That's what they call them. But we call them, you know, whoopies. And it's nylon, whatever, but they're warm. They're comfy. They're comfy as a well-used cunt. It's just really nice to slip into, and if you're worried about the wool, you won't get scratched by it if you use it as a liner. And the basher wrapped around it, this a lot of people don't understand. If you don't have a backpack, but you have your basha, your blanket, and you have your whoopee, you roll everything up. You can put your axe, your knife, whatever kit you got in it as you're rolling it. And then what you do is you just tie it with 550 cord down at the bottom, sling it across your chest and down through your back like a horseshoe, tie it up tight, and now you have a pack to carry your shit with. Simple. Easy squeezy, lemon peasy, right?
Yeah, improvise, adapt, and overcome. If you don't have it or you've lost it, you know, you can improvise. And again, don't be afraid to do YouTube, because there's thousands of channels out there where people are improvising, and it goes with 550 paracord. Like in the military, we were always told at all times we used to carry 50 meters of paracord on us in our belt kit. Our belt kit. It was a dying art in sort of like Afghanistan, because we had modular armor that you'd put all your shit on. But
right.
I mean, I can't speak for my American brothers and sisters, but the British Army have always been massive on what we call belt kit or webbing. We call it
Right.
our webbing.
Same
With
here.
the back, yeah, where you got all the pouches and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And it's sort of, especially as the infantryman, it is very much an individual thing.
Yep.
You go into, and I keep repping the British Army because that's what I was a part of and that's what I
Right.
know. But if you go onto YouTube and just type in British Army belt kit or British Army, the best place to see it is in the jungle,
Yep.
okay? Because when we do a lot of work in the jungle, the British Army, if you go there, you are living off your belt kit 24/7.
Yes,
Whatever
you
you've got
are.
on your back, whatever you've got on your back is your comforts. That's your
That's
sleeping
your
bag.
luxury.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you actually look. Your belt kit is what we fight and survive off, you know. And your belt kit, we've always said your belt kit should keep you alive for 24 to 36 hours
Yep.
minimum, you know. But again, you sacrificing weight for maneuverability and comfort and things like that. So you know what I mean? It's very much. I've lost my train of thought now. I've been
You were
waffling.
talking. You were talking about belt kit, and I get it. The military in the U.S. we had the LBE, the load bearing equipment with suspenders, and your belt. Your canteens lived on it. You could tell an experienced Marine when I was a Marine or experienced soldier because they didn't just have one canteen. They'd have multiples,
Yeah.
even more. Those 2 liter or 2 quart canteens the U.S. military produces, they have like a sling on them, but you can also put them on your belt. And those were the first collapsible bladders that were made, and that's during the Gulf War era. I have mine. Um, so the water transport is fine. Always a way to purify that water. That's something we should, I guess, briefly touch on before we bounce into everything else. But the water purification tabs, they now come out in these little square aluminized things, and I think it's AquaPure who makes them. You'll find those at Walmart. Same with the UCO Wet Fire, the UCO waterproof matches. Never had an issue with any of them. There's a way that you can put a bunch of them together, wax them together, and it's like a flare. It'll burn for like 5 minutes. And so if you have wet wood, it gives it more time to start that fire. But going back to the bashet thing, we used to fold our poncho. This is without the blanket, without the whoopee. We would fold it and wrap it in our belt on our back. So we always had our poncho with us. And like you said, in case you go down, and just like your first aid kit, we kept it up on our LBE left suspender. And the right one would usually be your compass. There's a little hoop on the old LBE suspenders, and you could put your Alice clip right through it on both of them. And that first aid kit is for you, not for anybody else. If you've got a sucking chest wound, whatever, you have the basics to fix self. Whether you'll be successful or not, who knows? But at least you have a chance. But the same thing with the poncho. If that chance didn't work out, that's the poncho. That's the item they're going to use to carry you to the helicopter to either be medevaced or taken to the morgue.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's some
Again,
reality to it.
A multitude of uses, like we said.
Mm-hmm. And,
Yeah.
and
So
I love these conversations, brother.
yeah, it's all good.
Yeah.
Because we are sort of like, I say prepper freaks, but we are geeks in a way that
Yeah. Gear queers.
there's a passion. Yeah, gear queers. There's a passion about it, and
Yeah.
it's when something does happen that it pays dividends, And let's be honest. I mean, a lot of the sort of preppers sort of down New Orleans, Louisiana way were sort of like scoffed at and shunned
Right.
until the place was 15 feet under fucking water. You know
Fuck
what I mean?
yeah.
And these people sort of like came into their own then, and then people have sort of picked up on it over the years. Like, okay, maybe it's not such a stupid idea to not just, and I'm not talking of like to the level we're going to, but just to have, okay, if something does happen, this is where I'm going to go.
Right.
Or a lot of people now, a lot of websites are actually saying, look, I've always some fresh water and some warm clothes just handy in case something does happen, and so there is it's more acceptable now not to be such a prepper as such or a survivalist, but to just be prepared, you know. And that's what's important, because you don't know what's going to happen. You know, anything can happen. Bad weather, blackouts, up until the sort of the apocalypse, as we were as mentioning. But again, bashers, going back to bashers, because again we're digressing. It's up to the person whether they want a tent or a basher. But all I'll say is, remember, one of the main points that we're touching on is you're carrying this stuff, potentially carrying it on foot, on your back. Do you want a 10, 15 kilogram tent? You know, or
Right.
It's all right saying, "Okay, I'll have a better tent." You're carrying it, and it's going to be more difficult to put up. If you carry a lighter tent, ask yourself, what quality is it, and what protection is it going to be offering? Yeah, so if you're going to go, I'm going to go for a really light tent where it might not be waterproof or whatever, then disregard that and just think, okay, I can get something that is waterproof, that might not offer 360 protection, but a basher, a poncho, at least is waterproof and is lighter and more easy to pack in your kit,
Well, not just
depending on what
that.
side of Europe.
Not just that. If you think about it, with a basha or a poncho, okay, let's say you get there overnight, it's raining, you throw your basha up, everything's fine. Well, now you're going to try to build a more permanent structure. What I mean by permanent is, if you plan to stay there, hunker down for a day or two. Um, if that's going to happen, well, you're going to start building a more permanent thing. You're going to use that basha for a lot of things, like bringing wood, whatever you're using it for, right? And because it's able to be used, bringing leaves, bringing palm fronds if you're over in the jungle, to waterproof your kit, right? It's sort of an improvised backpack. If you've lost your backpack, you're down to your survival kit, you're down to your basics, and you have a horseshoe, luckily, around your waist, or not waist, but your shoulder, and you have some kit with you, except not everything. Uh, you should always have your knife. That should be attached to your belt, but we'll get into that later. But the interesting thing is, you're using that, and let's say you come back, and as you're coming back, you notice people around your shit, and you're like, okay, well, this location's blown. Well, if you put up a tent and that's all you have, and you don't have your poncho liner and all that stuff with you, guess what? You're fucked. Now you're going to be forced to build a semi-permanent uh, shelter. And in the winter, that could be problematic. Same thing if you're in a very wet terrain. You know this, and I know this. Um, that could be very problematic. And now you have no shelter except for the basics you're wearing. And let's say it was more of a hot day that day, and you were working up a sweat, and you decided, well, I'm not going to take all my layers. Well, they got your layers too, buddy. How long are you going to last now? Until hypothermia, or you get overheated, you know, whatever. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I truly agree. Again, if you've got a tent, and you're either at your location or away from your location, and let's say there's some hostile people hanging around, or you need to bug out quickly, it's what I'm saying. It's a
Right.
lot harder, and it takes a lot longer to collapse a tent and pack it than it does to fucking drop a basher, wrap it in your arms, and run.
And
If you
take
know what I
off
mean.
like a bitch. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
it's
you can put on your ruck and carry the basher under your arms, because all it is a square of material, you know. Or you could just quickly stuff it into a ruck and then run and sort it out later. But with a tent,
yeah.
you're going to be losing tent poles. That means now you've got to try and find a tent pole that'll fit or is flexible enough. Tent
Right.
pegs, and it's a lot bigger, it's a lot bulkier, it's harder to pack.
Right.
So again, my preference: basher over tent any day of the week.
Always. I agree with you, and that's where, well, like you said, you know what? I was 17. I'm gonna be 51. So let me see. That's 30, going on 34 years. I've been doing this shit. You've been doing it how many years? 20 something.
Yeah, I was
So
military 20 odd years, but obviously I've been doing other things a lot longer, if you know.
right. Yeah. No, I'm just saying that that's these pigs are getting everything they want right now.
Yeah,
They're getting
yeah,
about
they're
60
getting a
years of
lot, yeah,
experience.
a lot of experience. But let's
Yeah.
be honest, brother, it's not all good experience, you know, because we started out, and let's be honest, when we first started, we were probably absolutely fucking dog shit, and
Oh,
it's only over our what we've done in our spare time, what we've done for fun, and then what we've done as a necessity as part of the job. And let's be honest, as a part of necessity, as part of the job, it's always harder because you're always put in a situation where it's not ideal. You've not been able to choose where you're going or where you've chosen to set up your basher. You might have to set up your basher, especially with the military, it's somewhere where you're either told to or in a location that might have tactical or strategic sort of importance, but the comfort side, it's just a moot point. You know, it's just like
yeah.
unlucky, fucking suck it up, big lad. So again, a lot of it's through the experience,
Oh,
and
yeah. I have a prime example of me as a young troop, 17-year-old. I wanted to do the light pack. You know, I don't know. I saw platoon or something. I can't remember why, but I wanted to lighten my load and just take the bare necessities. So here's what I took, just to be clear with you, so you can laugh your dick off at me. We were going out to a field problem only for a weekend. We weren't going out for a long-term one. So I'm like, this day in Germany was so nice, man. I can't even describe it. Matter of fact, one of the pics where I'm shooting a 50 is the weekend that happened. And I'll never forget, 18 years old. Uh, just turned 18, actually. Maybe a month or two before. And it's a beautiful, what should be a winter's day, but the weather forecast said, oh, it's going to be nice all weekend. And I'm like, fucking A, cool. I'm going to test out my theory. So I took my wet weather pants just because, you know, it's Europe, just like Ohio. If you don't like the weather, stick around a day or two. It'll change. And, or maybe sometimes a couple hours. But I took my wet weather gear, which was the rubberized shit, the old green rubber shit you used to see Americans wear in the 80s. And took that, my jacket and pants. Thankfully, I took the pants. I took a sweater, which was the army sweater that has like 4 or 5 buttons coming up. It's wool. Thankfully, I took that. And the old wool scarf the army used to issue. And the temperature dropped. I'm talking below zero, brah. There was no supply out in the field. There was no way I could get anything warmer. That weekend, it rained. I lived in hell. And I realized, hey, don't be a moron. The parts that were wool were warm. I had no gloves. Motherfuck, did I fucking die on that one. But, you know, I'm alive, whatever. But it sucked. It was the worst. And everybody just looked and laughed at me. Nobody was trying to help you. There's nobody going to
no,
help you, folks. You have to do it yourself. Save on weight, fuck yourself. But in all honesty, we're giving you the basics on, just like with the survival kit, you know, hooks for fishing. The military makes a nice fishing kit you can get, little plastic thing. It's about as big as a survival kit should be, but it's got everything in there from deep water fishing to lake fishing and different types of, you know, trout line, whatever. Uh, then, you know, um, I always, I don't know if you guys have it over there at your guys' version of Walmart, but for your hat brim, you'll see a lot of us hillbillies on our hat brim will have these hooks. Well, the hook is sold by the same company that sells fishing hooks. It's a bigger hook, but it's bent so you can put it over your brim. And, you know, it's sort of like a hillbilly thing. We all put it on our brim of our hat. And that's something that I don't think we've covered. Get yourself a good, Germany has these awesome wool hats. and they're waterproof, and they'll come right back to form. But the brim is wider, and I forgot to take mine this last trip over there, brother, and went to a market, and while we were there, I couldn't see because my glasses were so waterized. Right? It wasn't cold. It was hot, but just so many drops of water from my. I only took a wool cap, so it still happens. And luckily at the market, I was able to buy one of those hats, a second one. Yeah, the wife wasn't thrilled. Now I have two of those fucking hats. You can bend them, fold them, they'll come back to their shape. They're real nice hats, but they're waterproof. And guess what? I could see. The reason why I'm telling you I couldn't see is because with all those bubbles of water, I'm going down something at this market that I thought was like a ramp. No, it was stairs. And I almost fell and broke my ass thinking I'm just going downhill steady, slow. And my heel slipped off that, and everybody laughed because I sort of went back a little bit, but I didn't fall. But man, I could have busted my ass on that. So, think about what you're packing. Hats are important, and the wool hat will keep your head warm too. Also, gloves. Gloves, major important. You're going to be processing wood, getting splinters sucks. Always have yourself a good pair of mechanics leather gloves with you. And hopefully you have knuckle protectors too if you're going to be working on your car or something. There's just a lot of things that you can prepare for and have on hand, and you're wearing it. And also with glasses. If you've got a prescription, get the kind that will shift to darker lenses in sun. Also carry a regular pair of sunglasses, because fortunately, my twin sister, once she had her kid, which is now 20-some years old, 30 actually, I think her oldest is, her eyes went to shit instantly. I was lucky. It wasn't until I was 44 and in Afghanistan where I could no longer see close to read. And I sounded like a fucking retard. But I took care of my eyes always, wearing Oakleys or Varnays. Always covering my eyes. The wintertime, you're going to have snow blindness if you're not taking care of them. And in the summer, if the light's sharp enough from the sun, you'll have that same effect. You'll walk into your house, everything's dark, you can't really see. It's always easy to drop your glasses down if you've got a cord around your neck, if you're wearing sunglasses, to let them dangle. Or you can just pop them on top of your forehead, on top of your head as you're going into a building. I don't need glasses to shoot. Not that I have any guns or anything. They all fell in a lake a long time ago. But, that kind of thing, right?
Again, was that the boating trip or the fishing trip?
Oh, yeah. I think you remember that one when I posted all those pictures on that. That pissed me off.
Yeah, you were devastated, brother.
The bitch about it was we were going shooting and we had to cross this damn lake, and I brought all my guns to go shoot with, and they're
Every
fucking at
single
the
one of
bottom. God
I know.
damn it.
And it was just too deep to go and recover them all as well. So yeah, they've all come.
No,
Okay.
I'll tell you what. I don't know about depth, but it was cold, rainy, and I did not mark the area. So goddamn, somebody probably found them. And
Yeah.
those people who dive Lake Erie, somebody's got my entire gun collection, the motherfuckers.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, we're going down into, what's important to take. I think what's important to take is, first of all, the basics, like what is
Right.
going to keep you alive. Warm hat, a woolen hat.
Yep.
I usually have the tactical baseball cap, the camouflage one.
Oh, yeah.
I used to have one of those, and then I always carry sort of like a warm hat. Or if it's winter, I'll usually walk around with a warm hat anyway, like a watch cap or something like that. But it's again, what you need to be careful of is that overheating as well, like we've mentioned. Again, if you're sweating, it's wicking heat away as well. So again, that just comes through experience, and everybody. That's just common sense anyway. So we've sort of like touched on the bashers' tent issue. I think we're going to touch on knives as well, won't we? Because obviously that's a massive sort of repertoire when it comes to anybody who's a woodsman, a survivalist, a prepper, or anything like that. Is a knife, because a knife isn't just a knife; it's a tool again, and it's something that's going to keep you alive. And it's probably one of the most important things. If you don't take anything with you, a knife should be at top of the list. Usually more than one knife. Okay. It's only prevalent and common sense to take more than one knife. Try and mix up the type of knife that you're carrying. I think is important. So you've got like sort of a general purpose, a utility knife. A good straight blade. Always full tang. I always say go full tang, because then you got the strength, and then you don't have to worry about handles. Sort of, if it's only a half tang, coming loose or breaking off the handle. And then obviously
great for batoning. Great for batoning and processing.
Yeah, a larger knife for chopping if you don't have an axe. On that is dependent on, again, because we're carrying this kit. You might not always want to walk around with a machete, but an excellent bit of kit is the kukri.
Yes.
What the Gurkhas carry. Now, if you buy, all I say is be mindful of where you're buying it. If it's not a British Army kukri, okay, chances are it's not an original, because the British Army kukris that are issued to the Gurkhas they're made by Gurkhas, and they're actually made by the old leaf springs off Land Rovers.
Right.
Yeah, they're actually made. All our kukris are made out of old leaf springs, so it's all tested metal. It's flexible metal, but very strong.
Right.
But if you're buying off the shelf kukri, the chances are it's going to be carbon steel or whatever, unless you have one made yourself.
Well,
so,
now
again, go on.
If you're talking about kukris and machetes, just for a real quick synopsis, folks, you can check out. The company is called Spec Plus. Okay. The SP8 is their survival machete. It's squared at the top, which the top is still sharpened for digging. It has a saw back. Great for making little like figure 4 traps, figure 4 triggers for deadfalls or whatever you're doing. Also, the kukri they make. Honestly, Baz, buy one of them bad boys. The still is phenomenal on them. If you're in the UK, it may be cheaper getting that, but I think they're like $29 for both of them. That's the cost. And yeah, it's factory produced from Spec Plus, but they take pride in, here's the specifications of this knife. And then they add things to it to where it's plus the specifications. So you might actually like that. The edge retention's phenomenal on them. I've owned like 5 of them because I always give them to a brother whenever I'm working with him. I only buy the SP8. But the kukri is out there. I tried it one time. A guy gave me one, and I gave it away to a brother. I think I actually gave it away to a Gurkha in when was it I was in Combat Outpost Telecon? Was that 2010? Yeah, I think it was. 2010? No, it was 2012. I gave it to him, and he's like, fuck yeah. He didn't have his. So, it's interesting.
There is an art to using the kukri as well, isn't there? It's a strange shaped blade, but it's got a multitude of uses: whittling, hacking, chopping. And let's be honest, it's a weapon of war. You want to see your mess it makes. I've seen the mess it makes of the Taliban when the Gurkhas get hold of them.
Well, if memory serves, brother, didn't a certain gentleman who was a Gurkha win the Victoria's Cross, which is their Medal of Honor, folks, in America, for defeating a machine gun nest full of Afghanis with his kukri and his spade, right?
Yeah, well, he was actually on top of a compound, and he was cut off, and so basically what he did, he used the ammunition from his GPMG, or the 240 Bravo that you call it out there, and then basically used that as a weapon, bludgeoned a load of them. Beat a couple to death with the actual sustained fire legs, the tripod legs,
Right.
And then went to his shovel and a spade, and I think he dispatched about 15 of them
Yeah.
through unarmed combat, well, melee combat.
Hmm.
Yeah, he did a number on them all. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's a very formidable sort of bit of kit.
Gurkhas are awesome. I worked around them twice in my life, and I'll never forget the Gurkhas came through Jebel during the first Gulf War, and this regimental sergeant major they had was pissed at two of them, and he said, "I want 100 push-ups out of each of you." They smile, yes, okay, sir, and they get down and they're doing their push-ups with their Bergens on, dude. The smiles never left their fucking faces.
Yeah,
These dudes love it.
absolute savages. I've got some very good brothers. There's actually one of my good brothers who's actually an ex-Girk has opened up a restaurant, and it's just amazing. I'm there quite often, so yeah, they'll always have a smile on the face. It's not often that you see a Gurkha not smiling. Even in the middle of contact, you look over to them and they'll smile at you,
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, this is it's like a natural to them. They are very much a warrior race.
This
Um,
motherfucker is having way too much fun. And there's a competition by
oh,
them to who is going to get in every year. It's
yeah,
England mercenaries.
I was just about to touch on it there without digressing too much and keeping on the sort of like true nature of this, or the true sort of stream of this show. But
Right.
to get into the Royal Gurkha Rifles, they might have 15 places, 200 of them will turn up, and some of these have travelled for days across mountains.
Right.
And basically, each one of them gets given a basket with numbered rocks in, and each they'll be like number one, number two, all the way up until how many. And basically, they run up and down this mountain until there's fucking 15 of them left.
Right.
And that can be 20, 24, 36 hours. They'll just up this mountain, down this mountain, up this mountain until there's a load of them left. Those that don't make it in the sort of top like 50 or 100 then will be offered other places within the British Army. Where what do we do? When we do sort of our selection, we go do a couple of mile run, and you know what I mean? So it is a very prestigious sort of appointment that they get once they get into the Royal Gurkha Rifles, and that's why they're so good at what they do.
Well, they get English citizenship also, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, again, without going into it, there's a bit of a sort of an uproar with it because some of them do, some of them don't. It depends how long they do. But
Okay.
I'm a massive advocate for any Nepalese soldier, any Gurkha that's served, gets citizenship.
And the ones that don't make it into the Gurkhas or don't go into the British military become Sherpas, and that's something people always cast shit on. But Sherpas, those boys are carrying your gear, and they make sure, to the best of their abilities, you come back down Everest alive. That's no bullshit, folks. This is real. Anyways, let's get back on. So we're on knives, and I did want to touch on another one. Back when in the 80s when I came in, you weren't a bad motherfucker unless you had two knives. One was the Gerber BMF, big fucking knife, or big big motherfucking knife. And the other one is a Buckmaster. Well, I got my first Buckmaster in the Marine Corps in '88. Chuck Buck actually issued them out to us on that day. There's a lot of things. I've done a whole video on it on my other channel that I don't use anymore and show them. And then I had another one the next day. I acted like I didn't get one. And I got it issued by the supply sergeant because they didn't mark shit down the first day, but nobody noticed that but me. So I got that extra one, and it never left the other ones all kitted out. It lived in my rucksack. There's a few pictures where you see it on my belt, and that's when I'm going out to the field, and I would put it on my belt, because not your combat belt, not your load bearing gear, because you may drop that. I'm talking your physical belt, the one that holds your trousers up. And for all you Gen Xers and Gen Z guys, listen to me on this. Never let your life or your knife get out of your pocket if it's a folder, or off your belt, because in the end, you can only fuck with the cock you got, and that's the knife you're gonna have. If you have to drop everything else, at least you have something for close on defense and for processing wood or anything else. Never put that. Now, anyways, that is a hollow handle, so it's not full tang. I mean, it's put together strong, but Chuck Buck, this was 20 some years later, came to Columbus, and he wanted to sign this new line of Buck knives that were coming out. My buddy had a couple knives, and he goes, "Hey, can you take these over and get Chuck Buck to sign them?" Because he had to work. And on that day, I was off. So I was like, sure. And I grabbed the Buckmaster that I'd never used. It's complete. And I had Chuck Buck sign it. And he etched it with his signature. And I'll tell you what, that knife went down with all my guns somewhere, safe down in Davy Jones' locker, I guess, right?
Okay, yeah. Tragedy, mate.
My son will probably find it one day. Knowing him, he'll become a scuba guy like me. So we'll figure it out, right?
Yeah, you figure it out, brother.
My wife was with me. She can take him out on a raft. This is where I think it went down. Let him die for it. Fuck it.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, let's go back into... But yeah, those two knives, those were good for chopping. I'd say the BMF was probably better because it actually was full tang. The Gerber BMF. The Buck Master, I've never had a problem with it, but that is a weakness that could be. And I mean, and it's a strong knife. I mean, the SEALs were issued it, and so were Marines. So there's a reason for it. I don't want to get into it because it becomes an argument with a lot of these autistes that think they know everything. But anyways, so that's the point that I just wanted to bring up on, since we brought up big knives. So now we're good with big knives. What's up?
Yeah, so it's again, it's one's own preference in it, or what knife you carry. All I'd say is go for something full tang. I mean, there's some good knives out there that maybe aren't full tang. Like you can get a lot of Mora knives, Mora MMORA.
Those are great. Yeah.
Yes, I've got a couple of Mora knives. Gerbers. I know you've got a Gerber, brother. Make some really good knives. Survival knives. When people say survival knives, what they think for the sort of uninitiated is cutting around with the Rambo knife, with the hollow handle, with the fire-lating kit and stuff like that. If you're needing to carry a knife around that big with a hollow handle and all that shit, having a knife with the blade that big with a hollow handle, it doesn't really make much sense. You know, you can see where I'm coming from, can't you?
I do. I can.
If it's a utility knife, but I'm talking like a 1.5 long Rambo knife or something off, you know what I mean, a Schwarzenegger film, absolutely fucking useless because you can't chop with it because it's going to fall to pieces because of this hollow handle and it's not full tang. It's not got the strength as a full tang handle was, or with a machete or a kukri. But it might have fancy bits of kit in the handle. But if you've got a survival kit, aren't those in it anyway? So why have a survival knife with a survival kit in the handle? That's what I'm saying. It's just it's a chocolate bit of kit that's just going to fall to pieces after some rugged use.
Well, I'll tell you this, with the Buckmaster, like I said, it's a hollow handle, but it's got a super bolt in it. I mean, it would be hard to fuck it up, but I could see it could. But you know, the only thing I ever put in the handle, you remember the old Odie Green, and now that's in the knife that I do still have. That was the one I carried all through my military time in the Marine Corps. And, you know, National Guard beyond that lived in my backpack. I put in tripwire. And with that, it was the old plastic thing. They wound the tripwire through. And then you had 2 nails stuck in the top of it. Because it was useful for certain things. But now I'm sort of like you. Once I met Robert Young Pelton, we're all talking about shit one night. It was at the Pizza Inn in Baghdad, actually. Next day, it got blown up by a rocket attack. No, that's for real. That's a real story. But we're all joking around about the perfect knife, and I'm joking around about shit, and everybody else, we're all throwing ideas, joking. And I'll never forget this. I said, what good's a small knife? He's drawing out the hest, kinda. And other people are giving him ideas, and then I'm sure he refined it more because I remember the gross ideas that he's writing on a napkin from the Pizza Inn. And then all of a sudden, that knife came out, and it's maybe got a 4.5, maybe 3.5 inch blade. I don't know. It's not that big. It's got a hollow handle, but it's full tang. The hollow is because the grip is, it's one screw that goes through on each end. So there's 2 screws total. It goes through the blade, and it's a micarta handle, and that's tunneled out. So you could put bribe money in there. You could put handcuff keys, whatever you want in there. You know, if you want to use your prison wallet and shove the knife up your ass. But the point is, you know, it's a good knife. And then he came out with the STF, the Hest Folder, Hazardous Environment Survival Tool. That is a good piece of kit. Both versions are. It has a little pry bar. Everybody, I can't remember what people were saying it was when it first came out, but it's a little pry bar because sometimes, remember you get the wooden crates, you never have a pry. The actual scabbard they gave with it was good, and it would work for that. It was one of those 2-piece clamshell type of what's that called? The shit that they make form fit to it. It's like a plastic, but it's more of a like a Glock, a polymer.
Oh, yeah. Polymer, yeah.
Polymer little holster or sheath. Anyway, so the point is, it was meant for prying. You know, to get into like a little wooden crate or something. It has a beer bottle opener on it, on the back of it, on the spine. And it almost looks like a churl. And then there's wire cutters on the bottom, or wire trimmers. Let me rephrase that, where you would just put it over a wire to get the covering off of it. So there's a lot of positives to smaller knives, and your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I carry a few knives, and again, I'll say on your channel, don't listen to the social media and the mainstream media. Knives are not banned in Britain. You
Right.
know, that's just a fucking crazy idea. Ban knives in the UK. We haven't banned knives. I can show pictures of knives like the Rambo knife, like, you know what I mean, one of these machetes like Billy has a
Right.
Predator that you can buy in shops. You just need to be of a certain age. You know,
Right.
like to buy a firearm in the US, you need to be a certain age. So you can buy knives in the UK. Small knives, you know, a small knife should always be on your person, whether it
Yes.
be a foldable knife. I prefer a fixed blade knife because there's just less working parts.
Yep.
It's more sturdy, you know. And again, I prefer full tang. And then you've got a backup knife. Again, does that have to be as sturdy or as robust? Probably not, because again, it's just there as a backup. And then a knife that you can use as a general heavy duty chopping, hacking sort of knife, a machete, a Gurkha, or just like I say, a bigger knife like a K-bar or something like
Right.
that, where, you know, you can smack the back of it with a bigger with a large stick to start. You know what I mean? Cutting wood and things like that. If you don't have an axe,
Well,
you know, if you've got the opportunity to carry a small axe or something like that, again, Gerber makes some good ones, then do so. But again, we're carrying this kit. We're trying to keep light. You know what I mean? Fight light and all that good stuff.
Well, I got issued a Gerber, or not a Gerber, a K-bar. Let me grab this other one over here. I actually pulled this one out. This is an old one, but the best thing I ever found with a K-bar was to open up C-rats or MREs, right? Because as a fighting knife, it's single-bladed, useless as fuck. Okay, that's my opinion of it. I'll live and die on that. Now, the survival knife the Air Force puts out, that's a whole different animal. It's okay, but it's a small bladed knife, and I'm not shitting on it. It has a saw back. It's useful, okay? If we're talking about fighting knives, the best fighting knife I ever had was the USM6 Wimco, WMCO 1943. And it's sharp on both ends. Like I had a Gerber Guardian 1 and 2, which the 1 is the longer blade, and I still have it somewhere. I just can't find it, honestly. That's something I've misplaced along with my old gun belt. Have no idea where it's at. It's somewhere. But not like I need the gun belt because I don't have a gun anymore.
Any guns?
Yeah, but the knife is a USM3 1943. This is an old knife. I came across it. It's got a half blade on one side, full blade on the other. That's a useful fighting knife, just like the Gerber Guardians. The Guardian 2 is one that I used to wear on the back of my pants. It's a full length, and it actually had aluminum camouflaged handle on both of them. They were a matching pair. That's why I'm always wondering where the fuck I put it, because it was matching. Everything was perfect. I bought it the same day. They were both in one pack, I mean, at the PX, believe it or not. And here's the funny thing. Federally, there's no, this is something that'll blow military members away. Federally, by the law, you can have a knife no longer than 2 inches on any federal building or base. And there's no carve out for military knives, not even bayonets. Did you know that, Baz? In America, there's no carve out. Yeah. So every soldier, every day, who carries a bayonet, a K-bar, or any other knife that's issued is violating federal law. Imagine that. Think about it.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It's like when we used to fly to Afghanistan and places, or anywhere we used to fly. They were like, we need to take your nail clippers off you. We need to take this off you. When we're going through sort of like airport security, and I'm like, what about the fucking bayonet I'm carrying? If I'm going to try and take over an aircraft, you're forgetting that I'm carrying a bayonet and an assault rifle, but you want to take my fucking nail clippers away. It's just crazy rules. When it comes down to sort of like, when it comes down to night, I mean, go on, brother. Go on.
I got to tell you this because you brought it up, and I'm going to dive deep into this one. You're going to laugh your dick off. In America, if you were flying, domestically, and you were a cop, it's up to the plane's captain whether you retain and or the Federal Air Marshal, the FAM, whether you're going to retain your firearm during the flight or the pilot will hold it for you, right? So you meet them behind, in America, everywhere I've been that I've flown, it's behind a Delta counter. Anyway, so you go in, you meet the captain, you meet everybody, and they say yes, or the captain will say, give me your gun. It's up to them. Now, this is the funniest part. I'm good to go, I can fly. But you still have to go through screening. So all you have to do is hold up your creds, your credentials, and, TSAOC them as you're going through. And this is before they did the whole body scan bullshit. That wasn't out yet. And, man, this one dude saw my badge, knew I had a gun. I said, I'm flying armed. And he goes, sir, your knife. And I'm like, yeah, I have a pocket knife. That motherfucker took and this will go into another set of knives that I really highly prize, and I will tell everybody to buy them too. I have cold steel folders that I carried with the Tanto blade, and he's like, you can't fly with that. And I look at him like, I'm flying with a gun. He's like, yeah, I understand that, sir, but the knife, I have to take that.
It's just common sense, just fucking,
Bruh, I laughed my dick off and I gave it to him. And I'm like, have it, brah. That's $80 down the drain back then. No, it was 60 back then. And but in all honesty, man, it just the knife laws that every country passes are fucking retarded. But I will say, if you're gonna use combat knives that are single bladed, the only knives I suggest, because they're epic knives, I love them. They're the best knives anybody can carry for actual close-in combat. And they're both made by Cold Steel. They're both Tanto blade. One's the Tanto folder, Recon Tanto folder, and the other one's just the Recon 7-inch. Those two knives I have on my old pistol belt that, damn it, there's no gun in, motherfuckers. I had one slung in for right hand draw, one hanging for left hand draw. And those two blades together, phenomenal for the work they got to do. But they are single bladed, so you can knock somebody out with the dull end, give them a little thump. Boop. So, anyways, that's my two thoughts. Your thoughts on that little situation?
Yeah, the nicest knife I've got is a carbonite Fairburn Sykes Commando dagger that was presented.
Outstanding.
But they're absolutely useless. They're made for one thing and one thing only, and that's putting a human being to sleep.
Yep.
By stabbing them through the brainstem or through any internal organs. It's a stiletto blade. It's about just shy of a foot long, if not
Beautiful.
about a foot long. Absolutely gorgeous bits of kit. You can crush a skull with the pommel of it because it's just a solid piece of steel. And they're very hard wearing. They're very hard wearing because again they're made out of old Land Rover leaf springs, so that they're flexible and very strong. But it's a fucking gorgeous knife, and it'll sever a windpipe like a knife through hot butter. Or if you want to stick it through the base of someone's skull into the brainstem, there's no resistance with this knife whatsoever because it is so razor sharp and to the point. But it's an absolutely useless knife.
Yeah, it's not
again,
good for anything else, right?
Yeah. So I would never use that in a survival situation.
No.
You can have all the gear quiz thinking that they're going to be putting people to sleep.
Yeah. Not really.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So you're carrying around a bit of kit that again has got no. Would I use it for other things? If I had it in my survival kit, and let's say I didn't have a firearm, I needed to make a spear. What better knife to use than that? Because it doesn't have another use. I'm not going to tie my utility knife to a staff and start throwing that. I'm not going to throw a machete around, So to me, it's an expendable blade, That's the only other reason I would use it for. As a spear.
If there's a bear or a cougar running at you, that's about the only time you're going to use that on a spear. And you might get 2 or 3 jabs at it, and then you're down to your single-edged blade. No, I totally get it. It's the throwaway blade. That's the way I look at my M3 knife, which is in the M6 scabbard, which that's a whole different story. I don't want to break into all that. But the point is, it's absolutely ridiculous. Every design is purpose-built. You want full tang. That's why I do say the Tanto, both the folder, the locking system on it, it's a rolling lock, phenomenal. The Hest F, that system, frame lock, it's not where you're using just that little leaf spring lock that can fold in and cut off your fingers if you're actually trying to use it to climb with or something. This thing, there's a guy who's, remember the pegboards in high school and college where you would put the pegs in and you'd climb up the wall?
Yeah.
There's actually a video you can see on Cold Steel where they're using 2 of those folders. The old Tanto folders, the old Tanto folder Recons. And the Sills actually were issued these. And there was no deformation. The locking mechanism did not bend back. And the guy weighed like 300 pounds or some shit. It was some ridiculous amount of weight this dude weighed. And he went right up the pegboard with just his knives. that's the whole thing. The testing is the reality. Uh, but yeah, no, getting into the smaller blades like the STF. There's also the CRKT knives, a couple of those skeletonized knives, pretty good. I haven't bought a knife in years. I mean that. And I bought one. It was like $20 maybe. I don't even know if it was $20, but it was made by Gerber, and it's called a Freeman Guide. It has a sage green handle. The only thing shit on it is the sheath, but you can find for about the price of the knife a better sheath online on eBay or something. Uh, a Kydex kind of sheath. Uh, it's like a Hestef, or a Hest, not Hestef, but a Hest fixed blade. You can see that it's full tang, and it actually has a place to put a lanyard on it, so you could throw some cordage on it if you needed to. Or there's a really interesting cordage I found. Can't remember where I saw it, but I found it and looked at it. It actually has like a piece of copper, and this is 550 cord. It has a strand of copper, I think. It has a strand of fire making material, some sort of material they put in with the 550 cord, and another strand of fishing line, I think it is. So it's very useful. It's normally 7 um, strands of nylon cordage wrapped around that sheath of, black, tan, or green. And that's another thing we talked about earlier. 100-mile-an-hour tape. I always wrap that around an old credit card or something that didn't have any numbers on it, something like that. And you Brits had this stuff that was made of cloth. I still have my bit that I got back during the Gulf War.
Sniper tape.
That shit's the bomb, dude. I still have mine, and it's still sticky. I had to use it a month ago. Just a little piece of it. I pulled it off. It stuck like a champion. That shit was...
What we used to do, we used to use it also. It's called sniper tape. So what we used to do when I was with the snipers, our L96 rifles, what we used to do is just cover our rifles in this tape, this green cloth tape, and then you just get your camouflage, your cam cream, and just rub it all over. You could cam up your weapon quite easily. I know nowadays there's spray and stuff like that, but again, I'm talking about the 90s, where things were a bit different back then. So once you came back to the UK and you needed to clean your weapon down, you just peeled the tape off it. Or if we went to, let's say we were in the Arctic doing our Arctic training for Bosnia or whatever, we'd have the white sniper tape. We came back and let's say, okay, in 2 months you're off to the jungle, you could just put the green tip on and cam it up. So it's quite easy to remove and put back on. And it doesn't leave that sticky residue either, which is good. It's an amazing tape. And it's it's even to this day we still use it. And any time it used to come into the stores, let's say 30 rolls would come into the store, you could check a day later, there'd only be 5 or 6 rolls left because everybody should just fucking steal it because everybody uses it. We use it for everything.
Well, if you got some of that, brother, I'll send you a whole roll of 500 or 100-mile-an-hour tape, bruh. I want some.
Brother.
I want some. But no, man, that shit's the bomb. I've had that since Blackie. I had a credit card. I wrapped it around. I keep it in my car. The credit card numbers are gone, but it's just that right size, man. And the shit works. I mean, I'll tell you, here's something. Even 100-mile-an-hour tape will do it, but it leaves that residue and pulls hair. One thing with your guys' sniper tape, now that I know the name of it, because I don't think Blackie ever called it that, you put it on your arm if you had a bleed. You didn't need to put like a Band-Aid on it. Pinch your skin, put it on, sort of like how we do now with, what's that shit called? Super glue. Same kind of thing. Put it on, leave it on there for like, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes. Pull that off. Yeah, it'll rip some hairs, but not as much as fucking 100-mile-an-hour tape. But the bleeding stopped. That shit is
Good.
super sticky, man.
Yeah, it's good kit.
Oh, it's great. Anyways, let's go back on track. But yeah, those two things we failed to mention on, and wrapping it around a credit card or a shopper's card, something like that that doesn't connect you to it. There's no problem with doing that with 100-mile-an-hour tape or this sniper's tape. Don't worry about it. If you want to, get some, have some fun with it, because it's handy as a pocket on a fucking shirt. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it certainly is. And again, something so small. It's less than half an inch thick by about 2 inches. It's credit card size, so it can go in a pocket. It can go in the top flap of a rucksack. It can go anywhere
Yep.
without it sticking out or it adding much weight to your kit. And it's got thousands and thousands of applications. And I think that's the sort of the DNA of being a survivalist or a prepper or a woodsman, is having one thing that can do a multitude of applications. You see where I'm coming from on that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's no point having the shiny bit of kit that can only do one thing, like a Fairburn Sight commando dagger.
Right.
The shiny bit of kit that looks absolutely lethal, fucking sexy as fuck, but useless.
Right.
Having only a GPS, an all singing, all dancing GPS. I've got 2 or 3 out in my drawer in my kitchen.
Me too.
From the little wrist ones up to the ones you use where you go halo and hey-ho jumping.
Right.
Again, absolutely fucking useless as survivalist bit of kit. It's nice to have, but once the batteries have gone and you've got no more batteries, or once it's broken, or it's useless. It's got one use and one use only. Where a compass, a button compass that you can sew in your kit, or strop a needle. There's multitudes of other ways to do it. You don't need to carry around a GPS, added weight, and it's just something else to break. You need the batteries, and like I said, again, it's only got one use. So getting kit that's going to help you survive in a number of different ways, 510, sniper tape, and all that good stuff.
I actually still have the 2 shirts that I sewed. You remember these, the cloth, the silks that you could put into your shirt, that had the map of Afghanistan or Iraq in, and it had other neighboring countries.
An E&E map.
Yeah, I put it in the back of a couple of my shirts, both of them. Then I sewed a button compass into like where the crevice of my arm is. So if I'm getting searched and I got my hands bent, the button compass is in that. Yeah. And same thing with a bit of kit that, on E&E, and I tell people this, you got to watch out in your local states and this, that, and the other. But if you're in a hazardous area, it's not a bad idea. They make a lot of concealable handcuff keys. Tape it into the back of your belt. Put it somewhere in a sleeve, somewhere where you can hide it, maybe your prison wallet, that's your asshole if people don't know.
I want to know how big your prison wallet is, because you're getting knives and...
No, I was making jokes, dude. That was jokes.
Sure.
I don't know. My asshole might be that big, brah. It might be big enough to put a fucking ham up there to recondition it. I don't fucking know, but it's still funny to say.
You're loose and expansive arsehole.
Hey, they just all they do is shove a ham up my ass, twist the bone out, and now I have a reconditioned asshole, right? Imagine the skank smell of that fucker. No, but
fuck off. Shit the bed. Oh, fucking hell.
Good drills, mate. Good drills. No, anyway, so the point is, you have to think about the legality of different places, what's going on, and you have to live with that. But you also, in a hazardous area, all bets are off, folks. And these are things that you need to contemplate. What type of area you're going to, what do you need to tailor it to, and also climate, jungle, desert, woodland, i.e. Inclement. It could be rainy, cold, snowy. you have to try to tailor everything to it. So we've handled knives. Now, are we done with knives? And I don't want to give short shrift to small bladed knives because there's nothing wrong with them. You know, how many times have you you're losing weight in the field and you have to create a new hole in your belt?
In the belt and things like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
I mean, so I honestly don't want to give short shrift to multi-use Swiss Army type knives, uh, little uh, buck knives that you carve with, um, carve or whittle with.
You
I
like
really,
little stubby sort of triangular bits,
yeah,
Yeah, really good knife, and you'll find that they're really strong as well because of the short length of them. There's not much to bend, flex, and snap. Yeah, yeah, they
right.
are good. Again, just little for skinning, for whittling, for deboning, and things like that. They are a really good knife, and they're quite easily concealed, really light, so you could easily carry one of them. Again, the multi tools, like you said, the Gerber multi tools, the Leatherman multi tools,
Oh
SOG
fuck
multi
yeah.
tools. We used to get, I mean, we got issued the SOG multi tools. Just again, I've got about 3 or 4 different multi tools. They're priceless because they're not that strong. You can't sort of like chop wood with them because
Keep
it's a
going,
multi
bruh.
tool. So but the multitude of uses, it's got corkscrews, it's got files, it's got saws, it's got fucking beer openers because that's an essential. And again, they'll usually have a multitude of different blades, like a serrated one and a normal cutting blade like that. So again, they're really, really useful. Is it going to be sort of your main go-to blade for everything that you do? Probably not. But for light work and things like that, fiddly work, because I've got the pliers on as well. Again, a very small, relatively light bit of kit has got thousands and thousands of applications, which, like I said, it's priceless when it comes to um, being in a survival situation. And again, with the rest of your knives, you could tailor what you actually choose to use what blade for. So it's really important. And usually they come with a good carrier or a good scabbard or a pouch that again can be usually attached to your trouser belt,
Yep.
which is priceless because again it's always going to be with you. Even if you lose all your other knives, at least you've got something to cut, to saw, to pinch, whatever.
No,
Come on, brother.
and I said yeah. No, not just that. You can have two of those. But here's the interesting thing with multi tools. That becomes your two is one is none, right? The blades on those, especially the SOGs, the way they open, phenomenal bit of kit. I do have a Leatherman that I absolutely adore, and that Leatherman is designed to fix and to work on AR platform firearms. I got that when I was over in Afghanistan this last time, working around those boys. The nice thing was I had my SOG, never had to break it out. Needed a Leatherman though, and it had a screwdriver on it. Oh my God, a Phillips head screwdriver.
Yeah.
It looks funky. I mean, it's flat, but it's got those little protrusions out the other side, so it works in a Phillips head. Another small blade that I try to tell people I own several of them. My wife hates them for a reason. We'll talk about it offline. But it has a little X-Acto razor blade in it. Very small knife. And it's made by Gerber. It's called a Artifact. Also like a little pry bar, a bottle opener. It's, a small little multi-tool, but I keep it in with my SOG. And the interesting thing about that little blade is it's like $12. And it comes with a couple extra X-Acto blades in this little plastic carrier. And let's say you get a deer. Well, when you take the skin off, when you're making that center cut, you're going to dull your knife really quickly. But if you have a razor knife like that, you can dispatch the outer skin, the outer fur, and not dull your normal blade. If anybody's never opened a deer, what you're going to see once you pull the fur away, when you're cutting it away, if you've seen houses being built in that visqueen, how it looks like it has X's of white like strings in it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
As you're going down through the chest and into the abdomen, you'll start seeing that on a deer. It's almost like we create shit that God already created, but it looks like visqueen. And that's kind of tough too. And you don't want to overcut it, so you have to, at the throat, you have to pull it out with your two fingers and just slowly cut down. And move your fingers with it, by the way. You don't want to puncture any of the
Cavity.
internal organs, right? You don't want to taint the meat. And, but yeah, I mean, I've actually processed entire deer one time with my cold steel Recon Tanto folder. And the blade at the end of it was shit, especially after I had to go through that pelvic bone so that I could, once the guts are all out, the heart, all the cavities out, you got to hit that, and it was a female deer at that time. I had to hit that pelvic bone just like rapid fire to pop through it so that I'd already cored out the female reproductive organ area and the anus and just popped it right through. It just folded right out. But man, if you don't do it quick, the gases in the guts of these animals will expand so quickly, you worry they're going to pop because it's not getting evacuated anymore. You know, the gases are no longer leaving that deer's body. So, kind of a thing to think about. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and again, like you've said there, like, it's an essential skill. If you're going to be surviving, then at some point you're going to be eating, and there's only so much you can scavenge. Um, if you're lucky enough to be in an area where you can sort of get into urban or suburban areas where you can um, not loot for food, but scavenge for tins and things
Right,
like that. Again, these are going to become high commodity items. People are going to be aiming for those gas stations,
right,
stores, supermarkets. And at one point, it's going to run out, depending on how long this situation lasts for. And you're
right,
going to have to go back to nature and learning how to do things like that. It's going to be a case of life and death.
right.
Because if you get a deer, there's only a small number of you. If you get a deer, a decent sized deer, a buck, something like that, you've got meat for a long period of time.
Oh yeah,
To fuck it up and carve fuck over it because you're inexperienced or you don't know what you're doing. You don't know when the next time you're going to eat
right.
is. So what you've got in front of you, you need to make the most of. You need to smoke it, make jerky.
Yep,
If it's getting to the winter months, think about freezing some of this meat.
yep,
Making it last as long as possible. So preparing an animal from the moment it's dead right up until the moment that you stuff it in your fucking face, you know what I mean? Again, it goes into that knowledge that I spoke about earlier. It's a priceless commodity. It's something that you're going to be able to go back to and go, we've got no more tins, but don't worry. I can put out snares. I can build deadfall traps. If you're lucky enough to have a
yep,
firearm, you've managed to get a firearm, or you've managed to be around your firearms when shit's hit the fan, then you've got ways of dispatching creatures, animals, for food, and knowing how to still got shooting something. Then you're just standing round it because you've missed a shot and you've blown its abdomen apart. Now all the gastric juices are now tainting all that meat.
yep.
You've killed an animal for no reason, and a potential X amount of days or weeks worth of food.
Yeah.
So again, it's learning how to do that, brother.
Well, two things to touch on that real quick. What I'll tell you is, I'm in the winter. Our electric went out for a couple days. Everybody's like nuts around, neighbors. Not some of the neighbors that I know that are more prepared than others, but the renters. They're like, what are we going to do? The meat's going to... And the renters were actually having a big barbecue party. It was bizarre. It was funny. All I did was, I have an area in my yard that's segregated, dogs can't get to. Took out coolers, left them open, threw some snow in it, And until the electric came back on, guess what? That meat was kept cold. And this is years ago. And anyways, you should, when you're butchering something, you put it in your garage where it's chiller. Hang it upside down. It'll take some of the wild out of it. When you're going to cook it, you want to definitely, if you can, soak it in milk. Of course, in a survival situation, you won't be able to. But the back strap on any animal, the best thing you've ever eaten. You put it on the grill for like 5 seconds one time, 5 seconds the other. Best piece of meat you're going to eat. But a hot grill.
Cause it's a long weight bearing piece of meat. It's so soft, it just melts.
It does. It's the tenderloin, baby. But no, so we've gone through some of that. Now let's get into spades, maybe saws, dependent. I'll give you my thoughts on them, and then I want to hear yours, because I've never used your kit with spades. I think we both use the same type of saws. There's an aftermarket one that's pretty good. I own that along with all the stuff in it, but I don't want to go there yet. Not with saws. Hatchets and spades. First, I'll go on hatchets. I bought an aftermarket hatchet. No, I didn't buy it. I just lied to you. My uncle had this hatchet. It had a nail puller on it. I got it when I was in Boy Scouts. He gave it to me. I found an old surplus Army hatchet hanger thing with a Alice clip when I was a Boy Scout getting my eagle. I always carried it. If anybody wants to read, there's a book called I wasn't a ranger, but I got the book. It was like the Ranger Rules or some shit. I can't remember. It's a Ranger guidebook. Anyways, one of Roger's Ranger's initial thing was keep your hatchet clean as a whistle and scour it, with a scouring, like you said, a scouring piece of metal, like what do you call it earlier? The you can make a fire with it. You can do everything with that damn thing. We were just talking about it at the beginning of this podcast. The metal that you scour pots and pans with. We were just
Brillo
pads. Steel wool. Scour it with a steel wool. Anyways. And make sure it's heated. Never put it away wet, but make sure you clean it with hot water and then oil it afterwards. Anyway, so certain rules with a hatchet. And I named mine Blood Fang. I did that when I was a kid. I don't know why I did. Anyways, I think it cut me or something, and I said, "You fucking Blood Fang," and that's how it stuck. Anyways, I gave that to my son. That's his now. I told him the history of it. That thing's probably 60 years old, brother. Because my uncle had it before me. And the interesting thing is, that thing holds an edge like you would not believe. My son processed, I put a picture of it on my page. That was that picture where he's holding the hatchet and cutting up all that wood and processing small when him and my wife and his wife were camping. A hatchet's useful. I find, and it's all metal. It's one piece, just except for the handle. It's like a rubberized grip, a rubber grip. That actually you have to. It irritated me even back then. It had a crack in it, so you had to bang the base of it. I'm surprised that fucking thing's still around. But it came in useful during the Gulf War. My time in Japan. You know how many times people were like, "Shuff, where's your hatchet?" Because they needed the hammer in. There was a flat end on the back. And I'd be like, "I'll go get it. I'll hatch it. And, oh, give it to me," NCO would say. "Get away from it. It's mine. Tell me where to put it." And I put the stakes in, whatever was going on. I didn't give a fuck. But the point is, I was like, if I give it to you, I got to cut you with it. I can't just give it to you. Anyway, it's just something funny I used to say to him because I didn't give a fuck. But the point is, hatchets are good. I found a better thing. SOG makes a phenomenal tomahawk. I carried an old, I had it for years, and whatever happened to it, I have no idea. But it was an old Vietnam tomahawk I had. SOG makes the best tomahawks I've ever carried. I'm being very real with you. So, and it'll do everything a hatchet will do. That's why I gave Max Iron Fang. I was like, here's Iron Fang, take it. A buddy of mine camping, he's civilian. Wing. It's not Red Wing. That's a boot. It's something Wing. The East Wing. East Wing. Est Wing.
Yeah. I've got an S-ring hammer. Amazing bit of kit.
The hatchets are phenomenal. It's like it's almost 2 foot of hatchet. And when we went camping, this motherfucker was processing wood with that. That was like 1.5 feet and probably 8 inches thick. And he's just like cutting them in 2, cutting them in 3s, cutting them in 4s, cutting them in 5, and just processing them down. If you can get an East Wing, I think it's called an East Wing actually. Get an East Wing.
Yes. ESTWNING Est Wing.
Yep. Get one, man. I'm telling you, you're gonna love it for camping. I just didn't want to buy. Dude, I went to go get one. They're like $60, and I'm like, I'm not gonna bite into that. But the SOG, tomahawks, phenomenal for that too. Anyways, your thoughts?
Yeah, the SOG Tomahawk, it's an outstanding bit of kit. They used to issue the guys going into the caves out in Tora Bora.
Yep.
The SOG Tomahawk.
Yep.
Yeah, it's honestly that was there for certain reasons, an amazing bit of kit. Again, it comes down to what your preferences are. I personally don't carry one because I'm one of the guys that look. If I've got a strong enough knife, I don't need a tomahawk because there's only so much you carry. If you've got multiple knives,
right.
You don't want a tomahawk hanging off your kit, you know, rattling around because there's only so much you can get in that ruck. I don't carry a big ruck. I carry,
right.
You know, something that's quite not small, but not as big as a ruck that we used to carry around in operations type of deal, where you can operate for months and months at a time out of it. It's just a normal one we used to carry in Afghanistan type of deal. So I personally don't carry a tomahawk, but again, you might, and those out there that are listening, they might prefer a tomahawk to a stronger knife, because again, if it's a multi-utility tomahawk, like I know SOG do and I know Gerber do one as well, it's got multiple applications and it'd be really useful.
Well, I'll tell you this. I have 2 applications for the tomahawk. I do. Well, you've seen probably the video on my other channel that I don't even use anymore. I have a Kifaru E&E bag. It's a decent sized bag, but everything's squared, compacted. Everything fits where it needs to fit. Yeah, of course, it's coyote, brown, or coyote tan, I think they call it now. Anyways, the thing about it is, I can hang that on the back of it, and it still doesn't broach my back size. It's very small. It's a decent bit of kit. The tomahawk, I have a separate hanger on it to keep the blade covered. It's Kydex. And if you needed to use it, you can just bump it off as you're using it, and then the blade's exposed. So it's real gross motor movement. So it's a good bit of kit that way. But yeah, I think the SP8 and a SOG Tomahawk, the bigger one, not the smaller one, That's as long as you put on the a nice little wrap sling for the bottom of it. Um, it's a good bit of kit for fighting and for use. If you don't want to have a spade, which now we're going to get into the spade discussion, unless you have more to talk about with tomahawks or
No,
hatchets.
good. No, no, brother. Because obviously I don't carry one. I'm not an expert on tomahawks. I know that people prefer them over bigger knives, but I think you're the sort of the more informed person out of the two of us when it comes to those.
Well, the interesting thing about a tomahawk is you have that sharp point that'll go through Kevlar. It will. You put that in your dominant hand, the knife on the left hand, or the right hand, whichever is non-dominant, and that knife is only going to be used to cut. Um, how do I say this without? That's your control hand. Your non-dominant is the one that severs. It severs the things that make somebody mobile or something mobile.
Tendons.
Tendons and and muscles and all that. Yeah. So that's the non-dominant hand is the knife, and um, the other hand wields the tomahawk because honestly, you and I both know this. A Sykes Fairborn, it's going through even unless you have a metal plate, ceramic, it's going through it.
Yeah, it's
Enough
going through armor
force.
the lot. It's going through Kevlar. It's going through
Yeah.
leather.
Yeah.
It's going through everything. It's going through flesh, sinew, muscle, bone, and it's coming out the other side.
Exactly, and that's the point of it. But yeah, no, so I am a fan of it just because it's multi-use, but we'll get off that now. I don't even know why I went down that road, but yeah, so it is what it is. So now we'll go into spades. I've never used any of your guys' spades. Don't even know what they look like. I know that in the 80s, I thought the U.S. Army spade was shit, which the Marine Corps also uses as a little triangle back handle. Um, then I think it was like after the Soviet Union fell that now this is just when I saw it go out commercial because I'm going to tell you about my time in Europe. I think I threw a Playboy over the wall and a guy threw me his fucking spade. I still have that spade, by the way. All that happened was one time I broke it. Uh, it's an East German spade. And I sharpened all sides except for the sawback. And it has a nail puller on it. If you need to pull out nails or something, it says manufactured in DDR. But it's still, when it broke, all I had to do was put a bolt through it and tighten it down with a new handle. It runs good. And it never failed me. And how many times I saw those triangle jobbers fell, just from somebody trying to dig a cat hole to take a shit in the winter. Or on Adak, Alaska, trying to get through the tundra to dig a cat hole to take a shit. I can't even count, but my East German spade never had an issue with it. I just had one break, and it was because of the weak point of it was like a pin where they peened on both ends that they had in there, and it broke, but the actual stick didn't break. And I just put another bolt in there. Yep, worked like a charm. So what's your thoughts?
Yeah, again, when it comes to spades, it's very much a preference. Do you need one? If you think that you do need one, then by all means carry one. You can get pretty lightweight, sort of military type spade shovels that you
Yep.
can strap to the side of a pack, where they are the solid wooden handle and the stereotypical shovel head. or you can get a spade, a small sort of foldable spade. We have one, the Brits, the Issue shovel. It's quite hard wearing. I've never really had any issues with them. And the only issues I had with them is when you're trying to dig a 6-man fucking battle trench
Right.
in Germany in the winter.
Right.
And it took us 3 fucking days. So that's the only issue I had. That they're very small, not really meant for digging out large sort of fortifications or large structures or anything like that. But to dig what we call a shell scrape or a foxhole,
Right.
they're fine. You know, if you're going to be in a certain area for a certain period of time and you want to get yourself out of the elements, then instead of just sleeping on the floor or in your sleeping bag or whatever you've got, dig down a foot or so, line that with whatever, and then you got yourself out of the elements. The only thing you need to look for is obviously if it's going to be torrential rain, then that hole's going to fill up quite quickly, depending on where you've dug it. But when it comes to shovels, they are quite, again, can be used for quite a few applications. If you sharpen the side of it, it can become a chopping tool. So
Yep.
or automatically, I've done away with my my larger knife and my tomahawk. So again, it's an application. Again, if it's a foldable one, you can actually fold the end to a sort of a 90-degree angle as a pick
Yep.
as such.
Yep.
So you can use it as a pick to sort of break through harder ground or things like that. And it can be used as a weapon, especially if you've sharpened it. I don't know, the Alpha Group, the Spetsnaz, actually, it's one of their preferred weapons in hand-to-hand combat is a sharpened infantry shovel.
Yeah.
So again, it can be used for a number of applications, and again, you don't need to go for all these absolutely ninja, supposedly special forces bits of kit. You can go onto eBay, type in British Army folding shovel, and pick one up for a few dollars. You know, and it comes with a sort of a rubberized plastic case, and it weighs a couple of kilos. I personally wouldn't carry one, but again, if you're that way inclined, you're going to be digging and you want it for a multiple of applications, you're going to make it one of your main tools. Fill your boots, get on there and get one.
That's exactly what I was saying, man. If you're inclined to get it, it's great for sawing. The East German one I'm talking about. The Spetsnaz one, that was the one I was saying that went commercial. I think Cold Steel even sold one that was pre-sharpened. But that one, when I went home that night, it was a German guy, an old German guy from the Second World War. I think he worked at the post office, if memory serves. And he saw it, and he's like, "You need to sharpen that." And I looked at him, I said, "Why?" He goes, "Roots." He goes, "You're going to find roots there." And he goes, "You need to sharpen those 3 areas, not the saw area." I've painted that thing probably 20, 30 times. I have an old World War II German shovel too, the same thing, spade, but it doesn't bend. And that's a whole different story I don't want to get into. But the point is, this dude was like, "Yeah, you sharpen this because of roots. Yeah, it's going to get dull, but the blade, you have to understand, the steel is going to, it might chip at the blade, but that just means you have to sharpen more." And he goes, worst case scenario, you have something that gives you another arm's length distance from your adversary. And I was like, that sounds useful. And so if you want to replace a tomahawk, a hatchet, that's my suggestion. And yeah, so we've gone into survival kits, bashes. We've hit knives, I think, pretty concisely. Places to find things. Suggestions. People can make their own decision. Look, I don't have a gun to anybody's head on this, and neither do you, brother. We've tried to give some humor with it, you know. We just got to have fun. I mean, you know, we don't want to think about old Shuffy throwing his East German spade in his prison wallet, right?
It fit.
Oh shit, that's some hilarious shit. I think we've now found a new meme, brah.
We have. Just prison wallet.
Here we go.
You're smuggling other people out of prison in your prison wallet.
Oh, that's some funny shit. Oh shit. The first time a man's giving birth to another man. What the fuck? No, it's all bullshit. But anyway, so yeah, man. I mean, I think this has been a good conversation. We've talked about a lot of things. Johans, we'll continue on. Uh, you ask some questions. We're gonna continue to carry on and talk about things. It's just what it is, my friend. And you ask a bunch of questions. We'll get into, what do you think? We'll get into the uselessness and the usefulness of body armor, maybe. The zombie apocalypse, maybe next time. That, the sticky wet masturbational fantasy. The only picture I showed is today was me out in the woods I don't know, it's been a month ago, I think. That's the only picture I've showed. But I will throw something to tease them with, the Taliban, in a site that we don't need to talk about where that picture was taken, unless you want to in the next show. But that'll be a little teaser for everybody to stick around. Maybe you're seeing something that you might want to hear about. Yeah. Maybe you don't. Jesus Christ, where are we going with this? All right, what do you think? Next couple days we'll fucking try to hit that one, because I'm limited on time.
Yes, brother. We're quite busy people recently. We'll speak offline. We'll get something jacked up, mate.
All right. Well, love you, brah. And with that being said, folks, thank you for sitting on my big orange couch. I'm gonna raise the drawbridge. I'll raise it slowly when the last person leaves. Thank you for stopping by Kaiser's Castle. Thank you for enjoying this little chat that me and Baz has had. And you're always welcome to drop by. Because who knows what you hear about. You hear about a lot of things, right? Never know what you're going to find when you're lurking in the moat of Kaiser's Castle.